How do, and welcome to my next project, which is another early 70s solid state black and white television, British built of course. This is from the massive, what was then the massive Thorn empire. Thorn, EMI, Ferguson, I think at some point they were called the British Radio Consortium as well, the BRC or something like that. Thorn Consumer Electronics Limited, HMV model 2818. HMV used to make their own, or didn't used to make their own televisions, but they used to be a brand for a particular make of television. I think it was Marconi, but I'm not 100% on that. I know that there is somewhere online there is a very famous photo of Oxford Street in London, with the HMV store there in the 1930s, and it has photos of electrical goods in it, including some early pre-war televisions. You know, those big ones that had where the picture tube was so long that they had to mount it vertically and then put a mirror, an angled mirror over it so that you could see the screen. Just tighten that a bit more, which I can do better with my right hand. So, early 70s, as I said, black and white, solid state television. This was I think it was designated the 1591. The 1590 was the 12-inch version of this. There were some circuit differences so that it could drive a 14-inch tube. So they designated this the 1591 series. Completely different cabinet from what the 1590 had. The thing that I like most about these, just purely on a design looks base, is that this angle of the back cover, the fact that it comes down from completely straight edge, then curve meets another straight edge. So something a little bit unique about that design of back cover. But I've had this for about 10 years now, and it worked when I last used it, but that was a good 6 or 7 years ago, and it's been sat in this garage ever since, which does not really do much good for television sets. So I'm just going to get straight into it now instead of my usual waffle. We're only about 4 minutes into this already. Let's plug in. It's not switched on, is it? No, that is in the out position. So plug in, switch on there. Okay, I can hear that, and I can also hear there we are. That didn't take much resurrecting, did it? One thing I'm disappointed about is this bit of trim. So that I'm gonna have to try and work something out to sort that, I think, unless I can just be lazy and just leave that. So no, doesn't seem like there's any repair work needed on this. Vertical hold and contrast controls at the back. Yeah, a lot of TVs at this time, for some reason that I've never really understood, is that they had the contrast control at the back. I know that Grundig were doing that into the early 80s, because I used to have I still think I've got them in storage, a couple of Grundig early 80s colour portables, and they have the contrast control at the back. So yeah, seems a bit of a strange decision to me, but the only reason why it's strange is because I don't know the reason why. Obviously, I suppose if the reason why was explained, then I'd maybe understood the thinking behind that. Right, so at least, well, we know at least the time bases work, because we're getting a screen and we're getting sound. Brilliance is brightness, it's just another name for brightness. That is it at its brightest. It looks a bit brighter in the camera than it does in real life, though. Right, so we need to see if the tuner works. It probably does. Right, so I'm just going to get it plugged into that. And look at that, it's almost didn't even twiddle the knobs or anything. Right, I think there's something. Yeah, that cable needs replacing, I think. Well, we almost had something there, but it's still something vaguely there. There are diagonal lines. I know that you can't really see it because the camera is flickering. Okay, so vertical hold needs adjusting. That is around the back. It is that one. So if I twist that, okay, that's at the end of its travel. Okay, and it's just about locking on. That vertical holds at the end of its travel. Right, so we do have a fault then. Sorry, my camera work on this one's really crap. I'm sorry about that, guys. So yeah, this needs servicing. Okay, there is one fault on it. That vertical hold is right at the end of its travel and just about locking on. Right, so vertical hold circuit. I think I've actually got the official Thorn service manual for this chassis. There was an Alba version which was kind of maroon colour. This is brown, as you can see. There was an Alba version that was maroon coloured, and then there was a Ultra version that was silver up here and black front black front fascia, whatever. Right, so right, so that is probably just down to a resistor or capacitor. This, as I said, this is all solid state. Might well be down to a transistor, but it's more likely going to be a capacitor, I think. Here it is. Right, so Thorn must have been, around about the time that this was made, Thorn must have been in the middle of changing their name. British Radio Consortium, I might have said Retail Consortium earlier, British Radio Consortium or something. In fact, I think they were also using the Thorn name in the mid-50s as well. I'm sure I've got a valve, mid-50s valve set in my lockup that has Thorn written on the back. But anyway, so, or maybe they just used two different names for whatever reason. In fact, yeah, they did. Look, Thorn British Radio Corporation Limited, not Consortium. Oh, a member of the Thorn group. Ah, okay, so Thorn was the parent. British Radio Corporation must have been the manufacturer, and then used brand names like that they'd bought out, like HMV. Okay. So at some point then, in the 70s, I think that they stopped using the BRC name, stopped using the BRC brand, and then Thorn must have wound up BRC, liquidated BRC, wound it up, and then bought out the assets of BRC or something. I guess that's what they've done, you know. I could be talking out my arse. Right. I don't know. There's the circuit diagram. It has just occurred to me while I was spending 2 minutes finding this, that the reason why that may well have been rolling as well at one end of its lock is because it might just not like the sync coming out of that, even though the sync coming out of that is supposed to be on point. So what I will want to do as well is I'll just want to see what it's like with the Freeview box plugged in, right, because that is supposed to have, because that's a digital crystal oscillator or something like that, so that's supposed to be on point as well. So let me just see if it still does the same with that plugged in. Hang on. Of course, we can't use an off-air signal now because analog transmissions ended in my area about 12 or 13 years ago. Right, so unplug that and follow the lead. Follow the leader, the leader, the leader. Follow the lead wherever we may go. Plug that in. Just hold it with, keep it in place with my other elbow. There we are. Right, on. We'll switch it to a different channel for this because I don't want to be arsing around changing, retuning it every 5 minutes as I switch between these. Looks as though we might have had something just a moment or so ago then. There's something there, hang on. Looks like that's just a harmonic of whatever. A harmonic of whichever frequency we are looking for. There's definitely something there. There we are. Focus is a bit out on that. Yeah, it's still struggling, isn't it? Just a vertical hold again. Okay, that's much better lock. Right, okay, I'm twisting it from one end to the other and it's absolutely fine. Right, so there's just something about the, first of all, something about the aerial socket. Hang on. Okay, that needs attending to, so we'll still got an excuse to open this up. One thing I have noticed is that the raster on this doesn't seem to quite extend upwards, so maybe the raster on that thing is a little bit too high. Maybe the TV was picking up little bits of video information and interpreting those as a frame signal. frame sync, I don't know. Yeah, that is, first of all, it's really sensitive, so let me just see if, come on, that needs sorting. In fact, it's a bloody weak signal. It's not just seeing it on the screen, is it, because of the preview box, but there's a weak signal getting into this telly as well. What's going on here? I'll need to have a look at that aerial socket. Something not right there. Yeah, the focusing on that is not great. So, being a Thorn, this tube is probably a Mazda, right? And this tube may be on its way out. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Right, I've already unscrewed the screws at the top, and also there's one around there and one there and there. None along the bottom. In fact, yeah, I forgot how to do. Right, if we unplug that, and then pull the back off. Rather unhelpfully, the mains cable doesn't. The back doesn't come completely separate because the mains cable is right the way through it, but there it is. This is what we are looking for. Just stick that in there. We've even got a diagram of the chassis, not a circuit diagram, but a diagram of the chassis on the bottom, on the back. Right. Down there, out of the way. Right, so a couple of cables trapped underneath. Hang on. Right, so the frame stage actually seems to be okay. It was the aerial socket that we needed to have a look at, and I think it was just the aerial socket, wasn't it? Oh yeah, and I also wanted to test the tube as well, because the focus is not there, not fully there. In fact, I'll also probably need to test the focus voltage to that as well, make sure that that's up. It was designed to work on both mains, which I think by 72, 73, I think the UK had just completely rolled out 230 volts, or 240 volts, sorry, AC mains to all residential properties in the UK, maybe a couple of isolated farmhouses and things. Maybe a few of those had been left out at that point, but so DC mains and so all DC mains for residential properties and AC mains with other voltages and other frequencies were all completely phased out. So it's designed for that, but it's also designed for connecting to a car battery. And I think that actually in case you needed to use it, yeah, 12 volt DC battery, 240 volts AC, 50 Hertz. So these were made in Thorn's factory in Gosport, I think. I know that the service depots are in London, Manchester and Glasgow, but that's just for ordering spares for repair. The factory for these, anyway, from what I remember, was in, yeah, as I said, in Gosport near Portsmouth. I think Gosport is actually a suburb of Portsmouth. I'm not sure, but and that is the Ultra version that I mentioned. See, Ultra. As I said, it's silver on the top, black trim. Oh, sorry, silver trim, black front panel. Used to have one of those, and that one was rusty as hell. It had been installed in a very damp condition. I tried to resurrect it back when I was fairly green at this hobby, and I just couldn't do it. There seems to be something, if you're yet to see the resurrection of the Pi CT200, which was a colour solid state set. I've already done it, but you're yet to see it at the time of watching this, and there seems to be something about rusty television sets that's almost impossible to work on, that makes them almost impossible to work on, to resurrect. So yeah, this is the 1591 chassis. So yeah, I believe that the modifications are listed somewhere in this. I actually bought this when I was doing that Ultra that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And it's got to be something in the line stage that's got to be, it's got to be different to give it enough EHT. Yeah, in fact there, look, see, like that one where it says 1590 only, so the 1591 does not have that capacitor. And there's probably a few other examples of this through here, but yeah, but this is the circuit. The field time base in early versions of both the 1590 and 1591 is different. It should say, if it's a Thorn, it should say which schedule, which schedule this is on the bottom of the board. E, right, schedule E. So so we can ignore that. So we concentrate on this really. But what I need to do is not really all that involving this. I do just want to check the frame voltages anyway, because I find it strange how that worked fine on the Decker that you would have seen 2 weeks ago, which was same era, and yeah, same era as this, also solid state, and it worked absolutely fine. The Decker worked absolutely fine with that, but the Thorn doesn't. So maybe there is a fault developing, or maybe it's just a circuit design thing. We'll have a look, because I'll want to see if all of these voltages in this, in fact that's the line stage, that's the frame stage. I want to see if all of these voltages are okay. Yeah, that is the frame stage. They call it a field stage on this. Field oscillator, field sync isolator, multi-vibrator isolator, protection diode, linearity amplifier, driver, field output, field linearity. So this is where we need to look, because remember with that it was only locking on to the vertical hold right at the end of this knob's travel, which it shouldn't do. That should be around about the middle. but it was absolutely fine on that. So, and I doubt that, I mean, it's possible, but I doubt that that is faulty, because as I said, it worked on the Decker. It worked absolutely fine on the Decker. Right, so let's switch on and then start taking measurements. If they're all okay, I'll just accept, that it's just a design thing rather than an actual mechanical fault, if you like. And then we'll get on to sorting out the aerial socket, and then also after that we'll measure the focus voltage and then test the tube if the focus voltage is fine. Right, so let's get cracking on this. So I want to test, it's nothing really wrong with the output because there was plenty of height. It's more an oscillator sort of area, this thing, if it's just at the end of its travel. That's the point. Where's the vertical hold knob? That should be somewhere around here. That's field linearity, field output. No, we don't want that. Linearity amplifier. That's height control. Right, okay. So height control there. Vertical hold. Right. That is listed there. So that means that the pot on the Thorn manual, that means it's somewhere up here. There it is. Resistor 78. So we need to check around here. 6 volts, 5.5, 5.2, 11.6, 3.0. So we need to have a look at this. I'll tell you one thing that I really do like about Thorn manuals, and I forgot about this, is that if you look up the component value, see I'm looking for VT14 because I want to measure the voltages on that first. This transistor here, you look it up on here, so there we are. So not only tells you what the transistor is there, so like field oscillator for instance, don't know why, by the way, one thing, I don't know why they call it like VT16 here, but say for instance it's called TVT16 there. Don't know why they're doing that, but anyway, one thing I do like, as I said, is it tells you what it does. For most of the components there, it tells you what most of these other components do on a separate page though, right? Because otherwise that page would be there'd be no space left to even determine anything. Look, see like capacitor 88, pulse limiter tells you what the values are, right, and this sort of thing. So it tells you what the circuit, what everything in the circuit does. But also, the main thing I wanted to mention was, say, VT14. You look here, it actually gives you a grid reference. So at D3, I think it says. Not really sure what the things in italics mean. Okay. Locations in italics refer to the main circuit diagram. Right, so see, we've got a grid reference on here for the circuit wiring diagram. And then we'll also say it was VT14, wasn't it? The other one, D3, it gives you somewhere in here. I saw it a moment or two. Here we are. It gives you an actual map of that. So if you're struggling to find something on there, even though components are labelled, if you're struggling to find something on there, just look in here. Said D3 or D4 on here. So my memory is, my brain's also all over the place today. D3. Right, so D3. Okay, so it's somewhere around here. VT14. There it is. Right, it's that wedge-shaped thing there, which means that it's a Mullard lock-fit transistor. The only transistors that I know of that are wedge-shaped, and it is... That means then that it should be right behind here somewhere. So it's between those two pots. There we are. Okay, it looks as though that's been replaced in the past, because that is not a lock fit. You see, it's got a straight edge one side, then curved on the other. Let me just see this lamp. Right, see, it's just bend that out of the way. VT14, straight edge down that right side, and then it's completely curved. It's C-shaped, really. So we're looking for that, but that has been replaced in the past at some point, I think, or maybe they changed where they sourced that type of transistor from at some point during production. So maybe, I would imagine, in fact almost definitely, this was made before this set had been made, and they must have still kept the same transistor part number, but just sourced them from a different manufacturer that didn't use a wedge-shaped transistor like that one is. Right, so in fact we'll be able to tell if has that been replaced. We'll be able to tell by the soldering on the bottom. It's around here. Have I just switched it on? Hang on. I must have just grabbed the on and off button when turning it on its front, so let me just pull that out. Hang on, I can't do this with two hands. That is a tough plug to pull out. There. No, the soldering on it, it's those three solder pads there arranged in a triangular shape. That one there, that's original solder, that's original soldering. It looks the same as the rest of everything around it, so that's original. Right, let me just release the on and off button. Plug it back in. Right, so let me measure some voltages on that then. Right, so I've got that hooked up. That says it's supposed to be 5.5 volts on the collector. Let's see what we get. God, the button on this is really stiff. 5.7, okay. Hang on, it's not tuned into something, right? There we are. Still 5.7, okay. And that is stable. We're now testing the emitter. It's supposed to be 6 volts. So let's see what I mean. You can't really, the button is around here and you have to sort of switch it on with your middle finger. Yeah, that's fine, 6.1. Okay, that's close enough. And what does the base say? 5.2. Right, so let's check the base, and I think the base is around that side. Base is meant to be 5.2, it measures 5.3. Okay, nothing wrong with that transistor. Yep, I've learned to switch on with one hand, switch on and off with one hand now. So when I have a look at that one, VT15, so there's one more thing I've just noticed as well. So is it TVT13 and TVT10 transistors? A field oscillator, I think. But they're in the sound circuit. Oh, okay. A printing mistake or something? TVT15 linearity amp. Okay, that makes sense. 14 the driver. TVT13 says that is the field driver, but again, that's in the field, that's in the sound stage. It's got nothing. Oh, hang on, where's this going? So is it using that as the... Is that related to it? Is that linked? Is it both? Follow that line, it goes there. VT21. And I think that's the power supply. Okay, right, so TVT13, I don't care what it says there about it being the field oscillator. It's not. That's nothing to do with the frame stage, nothing to do with the field stage. It's a sound stage. That's a HT rail coming from the power supply. This is the power supply, that's a HT rail. It's going there, there, up there, and then it's feeding the sound stage. So this is talking horse shit here, where it says TVT13 is the field oscillator. That's horse shit. Right. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it as well, but whatever. So yeah, VT14, the voltages are fine. VT15, so at least that label there where it says field oscillator, that is still correct. This is the field oscillator, I recognise that circuit. And then there's drivers and output stages here. VT15. Reason why it doesn't give a base voltage is because the voltage will depend on what the It will depend on what voltage is coming through the potentiometer, because it's set by the control on the potentiometer. Collector is 3 and the emitter is 11 point something. I think that says 11.6. Slight printing mistake there, I think. I'm sure that that's a 6. Right, VT15 is that one there, the wedge-shaped one. That's a lock fit, and I've never ever, and I think a lot of other people in the trade would say this as well, never ever come across a lock fit that worked properly. So if this one works properly and gives correct voltages, that will be a surprise. That will be a surprise. Right, VT15. Yeah, it said a second or two ago. I really need to make more space in my workshop. Said a second or two ago, yeah. Collector 3, emitter 11.6. Right. That's a little bit high at 13 volts. But what I am doing, because there's no length to the legs on that lock fit. One option I had, of course, would have been to measure on the underside, but my hands are quite unstable, so I don't like measuring on the underside of things, just in case I accidentally short something out while testing it with my test probes. So, in fact, no, I'm talking horse shit now. I'm measuring on the base when I shouldn't be. An absolute Charlie. Absolute Charlie, I am. Right, because there's not much length to the legs on this side of that lock fit, what I am doing is I'm measuring on the upper side, on this side of that resistor 82, because there's a direct connection to the collector on that transistor, so that should be 3 volts. Should still be 3 volts there. So let's switch on. 2.9, okay, 2.97, that's close enough. Right, so I may actually have the first 50-year-old lock fit in history that's working. And the emitter is 11.6. So I'm better off measuring, because that's the HT. I would assume that that's all okay, that the HT is okay, because everything else around here is okay. If that was low, everything else here would be low as well, so that is going to be absolutely fine, that HT rail. That's okay. One thing I do just want to check for as well is if there is any AC ripple on that HT rail though, because I've just noticed that capacitor there. If that is not smoothing out all wavy AC current into a straight line of DC current, and that one as well, if there is a bit of AC on there, then I suppose that a little bit of that could be triggering the frame output stage. In fact, would it? Because it was working, this is working on that, that worked on both this and that, that would only work properly on that and wouldn't really work that well on this, so let's check for it anyway. I mean, now that I've kind of rationalised my thought, my initial instinct or initial wonder, There's probably not much, if any, AC hum on there, but it's always worth checking anyway. And I've just remembered another thing I like about Thorn sets. Other manufacturers may do this as well, but I can't remember. But there's resistor 88, there's resistor 87. See all these fancy white lines on here? They're not just fancy white lines. These are showing which component is connected to which. And I can prove that, you see, because look, there's one end of resistor 88, there's a line, little dash there, goes down there, into resistor 87. If we look on here, there's resistor 87, there's resistor 88. That yellow diode there, where is it? There we are. That yellow and black and yellow diode, that bumblebee, I suppose what you could call it, a bumblebee diode. Don't know if that's what they're officially called, but look, that's also touching that white line. That is, where is it? It's that resistor there, look, see? Sorry, that diode there. Resistor 87, 88, W3. So, right, so we are going to test for AC on the other end of resistor 87 then. So let's see, let's AC what we get there. No AC voltage at all there. So that frame stage is working fine then. Right, it's just I suppose a slight variation in the design then, or I mean, it's not like it's I don't think it's a preset sort of thing, because there's no preset vertical hold on there, it's just the one vertical hold, so it's not as if you have a preset in the main one and the preset's out. So yeah, slight design incompatibility then between that and that. Okay, so but we know it works fine because not only we test the voltages, but we've also got stability on there. Right, so we can ignore the frame stage then. While I'm measuring voltages, I'll measure the focus voltage on the tube now, because I want to see if the reason why that is out of focus slightly is if it's down to a low focus supply. Right, so we are looking around here. This is the line stage, and we're looking for the focus thing, and I've almost immediately spotted it. It's there, and it looks like it's got a pot there, R134. In fact, yeah, that makes sense, because look, it goes up into one of the pins on the picture tube, it goes into there. The reason why it's over here is because on the vast majority of tube television sets, not all, but the vast majority of them, the focus voltage has to be extremely high, and this area is adept at dealing with extremely high voltages anyway, because it's got to power the tube. So so it's around here that we need to have a look. So I just want to see if that, or rather I would like to have seen if that voltage was okay. In fact, it should be the only thing that we've got to measure is that 300 there. Otherwise I don't have any reference for what it should be. In fact, that should actually be 0 on that side. Look, from that resistor, because it's going down to earth. So okay, there's 0 there. So this is what we need to measure, the 300 here. There's no voltage for measuring what gets onto pin 7 in the tube. So let's measure pin pin 6, that's meant to be 300. So pin 6 on here. So this goes in a clockwise direction, so clockwise from the gap, and the gap is there. So 1, 2, oh, some of these are, I think some of these are obscured as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's that yellow one. 7-pin tube. In fact, that would make sense, yeah, because pin 7 also. Look on there, look. Pin 7 also had a connection, and that was connected to the wiper of that potentiometer, that R134, that pot, and one of the legs was connected to pin 6. Okay, that's where we need to have a look. So 300 on pin 6 on the yellow one. So do we get 300? First of all, let me switch that onto 1000 volt DC. That can stay where it is. 300. 300, 300, 300. I don't think I'll be able to use my... Sorry, I'm still kind of looking with my own eyes rather than looking with through the viewfinder, and I'm still yet to get used to that. Let me just straighten that out using my little finger. I can't quite get that on there. I'm probably going to need 2 hands, because I'm probably going to have to slide this yellow sheath back a little bit. In fact, what I've done instead is I've just connected this up to the other end of that yellow wire. The voltage will be the same, just where it wraps around that post there. Right, 300 volts. Let's look out for that. 320. Okay, it's a little bit on the high side. A little bit high. So is the focus being overdriven? Or is that just a circuit thing? That says it's supposed to be 300. Okay, is it anything to do with that R134? Because that's potentiometer, and something at the back of my mind tells me that that is a sliding one rather than a turning one. Yeah, oh, in fact no it isn't, it's right there, it's that green one. In fact, I think when I turn that, it's having no effect on the voltage, but when I turn that, it's actually making it even worse. I'm going to have to twist this set round so that I can see both sides rather than having to lean over. So it could well be that the tube is not that good. Well, I've just tried readjusting that. There's no effect at all on here. None. So could that be open? That pot be open? It probably is. Right, it is a Thorn set. It's almost as if the wiper is not touching anything. Where are we? Yeah, there we are. It's almost as if the wiper's not touching or having any effect. What's the voltage on pin 7 is supposed to vary. So what I should have said is start measuring the voltage on pin 7 and then watch the voltage as I turn it. That's what I need to do. Just to be absolutely sure that that's having any effect. If the voltage is turning, then it has to be the tube. Well, that pot's not open. Right, 330 volts turned up at full. Turn it down, and you get 0. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, it's got to be the tube then, I think. The only reason why I think that the voltage up here is a bit higher than what it should be is because basically this is a digital meter, so it's probably picking up on something that an analog meter wouldn't have picked up on. Right, I've broken out the muter. I am going, so I'm going to see if this is in it first. It's Mazda CME 1420, which is Mazda's own part number for an A34100. That's the operating manual. Adapters. Right, so CME, what does it say? CME 14, yeah, CME 1420. Right. Right, the numbered ones are all at the back. Right, so CME, D, CT, C, CME 1420. No, it's not there. No. Okay. A34100. A34. No, not supported by this. Okay, so we'll get a B&K then. And the B&K doesn't seem to support it either, I don't think. It's not on there. There's no A34 there, it just jumps A31 to A37, and we're definitely in the black and white tube section. And there's no CME either. Jumps straight from CE to CT. Crap. Have a look, see if there's a tube, an equivalent tube type. Right. I will just need to spend 5 minutes just looking online for that. So no, can't find any tube equivalents either. I mean, I suppose, you know, if I had the patience for this thing, I suppose I could have built an adapter of my own and tested it, but is it worth the effort for that? You know, it's just a standard early 70s black and white portable, 14-inch black and white portable. There are hundreds of these things, hundreds or thousands, you know, different makes, different models. It's not, and this particular model, like this HMV model, comes up from time to time. It's not particularly rare, or yeah, so it's probably not worth my time even building an adapter for this kind of tube to test in a B&K or a muter. So, I mean, because it's not being used, I suppose because it's not being used in a very, very long time, like the emission and focus may well come up. I know it's not an EHT issue because the tube has still got plenty of brightness. I know I said earlier that it's a bit darker in real life than it is in the camera, but even seeing it with my own eyes, it's got plenty of brightness, so it's not an EHT issue at all. It's got to be the tube. It's got to be the tube. Right, so the only thing that we've got left to attend to then, so I mean, as I said, the emission in this may come up with some use because it's not being used in such a long time. The only other issue is really the aerial cable. So that needs attention. In fact, one more piece of diagnosis. That weak, sort of very flat picture has nothing to do with the signal actually. it's the contrast control. You can see I'm turning that, and it comes and goes as it pleases. Right, so that will need a squirt of Servicol then. That will need some Servicol. Squirted that with some Servicol. Oh, that's come off now. It's a bit better. It's still a bit flaky though, so okay, that's contrast is good enough. It's still very soft on the picture though. There we are, that's looking a bit better. Right, I've turned the brightness down a bit, but the focus improves, but it's still not quite where it should be. Just having a start again. Just having a look at the reason why the signal goes at the slightest touch or starts buzzing, and I don't think it will allow me to zoom in any further on this before it goes out of focus. But if I just get something to point with, you see, sets off by the way, it's fine. Right, do you see there? I know there's a larger crack on either side, but see there, it looks like that's been soldered, and then there's a tiny crack there. And it looks the same around the other side. In fact, around the other side it looks like it's making a joint. Okay, it's making a connection, but there, I'd say that's not. I'd say that that's loose. Okay, break out the soldering iron. Well, that made absolutely no difference. I think that the fault is actually in here, in this white thing, which I'm sure I could get off, but I just can't be bothered to, because, sorry, this is really difficult to get off. Hang on. I'm going to need two hands, hang on. Because that is rusted. That's not in its first flush of health, definitely not. Let's get the light on it. That is not in its first flush of health at all. That needs replacing. And the amount of effort for that just does not translate into what this set is really worth. So, right, so yeah, dodgy aerial socket. The whole assembly needs replacing unless you can somehow get that off. Get the white thing off. And one more thing I've noticed about this TV that needs sorting is that plug. That is, see, because years ago you used to be able to buy televisions and other electrical goods without a plug on them, and people were generally expected to put a plug on themselves. This is the reason why that was stopped. That could so easily come out while this plug was still plugged into a wall socket. So look at the state of that. Live wire is longer than the neutral one. They don't look like they're even properly in. They look like at the slightest tug that they're going to come out. Let's get this sorted. That is a little bit more like it. No doubt there are some imperfections because I'm not an expert, but I knew that what went there before was not up to code. Also, ideally, you'd need to put, or anyone would need to put some sleeved pins on here, really, but right, so here we are. It's pretty much done. In fact, it is done. Now, I can't remember where I got this set from, so what we'll need to, or what I'm going to do instead, so instead of playing a startup, an ITV startup from the region from where I got it, because I can't remember where I got it, instead I'm going to play a startup from the region from where this set was made. They were made in Thorn's factory in Gosport in Portsmouth, which was in the southern TV region at the time. So here we go.
welcome to New Year's Eve here on Southern. In 25 minutes, our film Africa, Texas Style, starring John Mills, Hugh O'Brien and Nigel Green, all about a rather unusual attempt to preserve Kenyan wildlife. We'll be going out of town with Jack Hargreaves at 11:30. And at 12, programmes for younger viewers begin with Little Blue. Right now, we're off to the Lost Islands.
Right, so an extra feature. Right, around about a month before I recorded this, I think, around 3 weeks, maybe a month, something like that, a YouTube sorry, not a YouTube archivist, but a TV archivist called Rory Clark passed away. He had worked with, or been a member of Kaleidoscope for some years, you know, the organisation that unearth old TV programmes that are no longer existing in their own producers' archives. And Rory was one of several archivists who used to recover programmes from very old domestic videotape formats like N1700, the Shibaden formats, and so on. So he's actually recovered some programmes that no longer exist in their archive, in their production company archive. So as a thought, by way of tribute, that I'd show something that he'd recovered in the past. Now, Chris Perry of Kaleidoscope, I asked Chris if I could just play something on an old TV set to show to you guys, something that Rory had recovered in just in remembrance for what he'd done. And Chris very kindly sent me three files that I've had to convert the formats of, because I've just tried playing them on this. They were sent as AVI. I've just tried playing them on this and it didn't work, so I've had to convert them to MP4. And so what will follow, right, because he sent me 2 complete or nearly complete episodes of an ITV kids show from HTV, I think, called Magic Circle, along with the first few minutes of an edition of Magpie, plus a Jackanory and a news round, both of which are missing as well, and also a Take Heart, which is all of those programs that I've just told you about, that I've just listed, are missing. These episodes are missing. Now, that comprises about probably nearly 2 hours worth of television. Now, I don't really have 2 hours to spare, right, and I don't have that much time left on the battery on this thing as well. There's only about an hour and a half left. So what I'm going to do is give you the full news round, maybe not necessarily in this order, but the full news round, the continuity bits as well. Right, so let's start off with this then. In fact, we'll do the news round thing last, so let's have a clip from Take Heart.
very well for 2-3 minutes. Plaster of Paris is the best stuff to use. Get it at a chemist shop or do-it-yourself shop. 4 large spoonfuls, half a jug of water, that's all there is to it. It's best to get the real thing if you can. The plastic fillers that you get in packages are very good, except that they are rather expensive. Now you can use tin lids as a mould, or do what I've done, make a little cardboard fence with some foil underneath it. Then when the plaster is creamy, not too runny, we pour it in. That's it. Leave it to set. The longer you leave it, the harder it dries. We'll come back to that later. Now then, rubbings. I expect you know about this. We need a bit of thin paper, pencil, softer the better, and rub over the coin. All right, Morph, you do it then. Well, don't give up, Morph. Have another go. I've been making some rubbings from wood grain here. Usually, the more old and worn it is, the better. This was taken from an old church pew, and that one from floorboards. Actually, floorboards are very good for this sort of thing. Here's a bit of scrap. The thing about rubbings is, of course, that you never really know what you're going to get till you've got it. There's something that could be a horizon line coming up here. The saw marks in this plank rather look like brickwork. We might turn this into a building of some sort. Where nails have been in the plank, looks like little windows or lights or something. So, now, let's see what we can do with this. Craft knife. Skyline. Now, where's that pew rubbing? What have you done, Morph? Let's have a look. That's great. Look. isn't it? An old English church brass, but it isn't. It's a modern replica, and it's made of some sort of plastic. Brass rubbing isn't all that difficult, even if you don't happen to be an expert like Trisha Dodwell. Just needs a little bit of care.
Now a clip from Magic Circle, with Alley Cat and whoever his puppeteer was. I can't remember his name.
From the bottom, pop up to that, and snap it. To the floor. Please, back, from back. One, stand, one. Now, next step. Two pieces. Second thing. On the second
I'm sitting here on a broom. Now, what am I supposed to be doing? I feel such a fool.
No, don't worry. If it's a witch's one, it'll go up in the air.
Oh, come on.
Maybe you have to fill the tank or something.
Fill the tank? What are you talking about?
Oh, wait a minute. It ain't got no propeller.
Hey, now, look, I can't just sit here. Don't forget what it said, anyway. The conundrum, what did it say? Spell me word and I will fly.
Well, that's easy.
What is?
Spell word. W-O-R-D. That's it.
Hey, it's moving, Ali. Hey, it's moving.
Hang on tight. Here we go.
Hey, we really are flying.
It's great. Oh, lovely. Peter Pan, here I come.
Ali, how do you stop it?
I don't know, but I want to go again. Here we go.
And now here's the SPs for the 410 at Epsom. First, Prominent at 7-1. Second, Oriental Star at 3-1 favourite. Third, Personal Call 11-2.
Boy Scout Hugh completes the job. Now comes the time to claim his book. Here's your reward, says Mrs. Lee. Now stay for some of this for tea. What can she mean? Puzzles Hugh. I know all my signs, but this is new. Craft Dairy Lee. One taste will prove it's mild and smooth as smooth. So be prepared, for this cheese spreads the very best of friends to bread. Craft Dairy Lee.
Trow, Texan.
Just let me finish this here Texan bar, and I'll be happy to oblige. Time sure goes slow when you're chewing a Texan. Texan Bar. My ma always said I ought to be on the stage. Texan sure is a mighty tune.
John, can I borrow your cleanser? Left mine at home. Trust you. Johnson's baby lotion. Any good? Suits me. It cleanses really well, takes off every trace of makeup, and leaves a nice soft skin. Feel. Not bad for an old lady. Watch it. But it's creamy, all right. Seems smoother. Oh, never mind. I know someone with a whole new bottle.
Johnson's baby lotion for clean, baby soft skin.
Get ready! That'll build them up, and their appetites. Make ready the bird's eye cod fish fingers! What they need now is juicy white cuts of cod with a smile in every bite. Double helpings for the winners! And for the losers, they need the extra. Bird's eye cod fish fingers, the happiest way of eating fish. Hello, I'm MacD.
Good luck.
Whoa! Oh, grown-ups can't see me.
What are you laughing at? Oh, thanks, Mum.
McVitie's Jaffa cakes, lush light sponge, rich plain chocolate, and that smashing orangey bit in the middle, as only McVitie's know how.
You think Mum saw you?
If she did, I'll eat my hat.
McVitie's Jaffa Cakes. Eating is believing.
Says McV.
One for summer, two for job, three for a girl and four for a boy, five for silver, six for gold, seven for a secret never to be told.
And a very big welcome to Tuesday's Magpie. I actually typed out the titles to today's programme on this Aston character generator, the sort of machine that will be used in the election results in 2 weeks' time on television. And this is one of the many gadgets that's been exhibited at the International Broadcasting Convention in London this week, gadgets that will improve our television programmes and extend the range. And this really is a marvellous machine. You can do all sorts of things with it, and you can even type with it. So my typing is not all that hot. Let's see how we get on. It's a great machine, isn't it?
How do you like the new head?
A great improvement on the last one.
Thank you very much. It does make a change anyway. I thought I'd let you see it because I'm going to be wearing it in a melodrama in a few moments. A grand guignol performance.
Oh, what?
Posh words for blood and thunder. Anyway, people, stand by. Magpie proudly presents.
No, it's not me reporting from Australia. It's just for the next 10 minutes or so we're going to be wandering into the special world of television effects. Ooh, that's better. The blood was beginning to rush to my head. Now, we're going to show you a little scene full of special effects. What do you want?
I really don't think we should show it to them, you know. It might frighten them.
Frighten them, rubbish. Who asked you anyway?
All right, have it your own way. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Honestly, some people. No, it's all right. There aren't two of me here. And I haven't got a twin sister, so far as I know. It's just part of the effects. Now, about the scene that I was promising you. It's a little bit frightening and very funny. And if you watch your screen now, here it comes. See how many effects you can spot.
genius. Transcendental genius. Oh, come to me, monster, for instructions. Yes. Now, monster, go and get the treasure from the vaults. Now, quickly. Monster, you've forgotten the treasure! Who's this? Take her away! You fool! Get rid of her, monster! Throw her in those electronic disappearing coffins! You fool, monster! You've destroyed all my plans! You fool! You fool! Monster! Monster! No! Monster! I was only joking!
I hope you enjoyed watching that as much as we enjoyed making it. But don't worry, our heroes escaped in good time for the next episode. As you see, Dr. Frankenstein wasn't shattered to bits when he fell out of the castle window. He floated safely down in his cunningly concealed parachute and landed neatly in his high-powered speedboat. After several incredible adventures, the monster... Look out! But we all know that the monster is indestructible, and he went on in his search for greater happiness. And then he settled down quite happily in the West, doing the things he did best. How was it all done? Well, to start with, up went the set. As you see, it looks pretty small, and we wanted to give the illusion of a vast old Transylvanian-type castle. So our scenic artist got a piece of glass and painted the rest of the set on the glass. Meanwhile, we put the props on. And when the glass was finished, the camera looked through it, and the painting on the glass gave the illusion of a huge set, which couldn't possibly fit into our studios. At the same time, Mick was being made up.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly...
And the last file.
My granddaughter. Hi, Winnie. What are you doing here? Oh, just visiting. And you have another visitor in the house. Oh, what big black eyes you have.
Yeah, I know. They lowered the broom on me.
Lowered the broom on me, he said. A wolf with a sense of humor can't be all bad.
Professor of Archaeology disappears and the gang investigate in Scooby-Doo in 15 minutes on BBC One. That's after Jack and Rory with June Whitfield.
While Morgan was playing on the beach one morning, he discovered what it was the pirates had been looking for, a rusty old chest. When they got it into the house, the family was amazed to find it was full of jewels. The crown jewels. Grandma stared at them with a strange look in her eyes. "Eh," she said softly, fingering a diamond-encrusted crown. "You think they'd miss this?" Herself, Father looked towards the sea. Sitting majestically at anchor was an enormous liner, and jumping onto the beach from dozens of lifeboats were the passengers, crew, and captain of that liner, the Queen Elizabeth II. "Hooray!" shouted Morgan. "We're saved!" Well, goodbye till tomorrow.
The House That Sailed Away by Pat Hutchins was adapted for Jack and Rory by Pauline Talbot. John, Peter and Leslie will be lighting up the skies outside Television Centre with the beam of a World War II searchlight in Blue Peter at 5:05. But now on BBC One, What a Night for a Night. Another adventure for Scooby-Doo and the gang.
Scooby-Doo, where are you? Scooby-Doo, where are you? Scooby-Doo with a shoe. Halloween. Professor High-Life!
And all the time, it was Wickles who made that Black Knight come to life.
Then there was no legend.
Positively not. Wickles just used the story to cover up my mysterious disappearance. Somehow he managed to get into the armor down at the train station.
And like on the way to the museum, he made you disappear.
Zoinks! He's alive!
Scooby-Doo!
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
In just over 5 minutes on BBC One, John, Peter and Leslie present today's edition of Blue Peter. That's after John Craven's News Round.
A new campaign claims Britain's cyclists need a fairer deal. Hello again, with news of a campaign to get a better deal for cyclists. In the House of Commons at this moment, politicians are talking about Britain's transport problems, and eventually they'll bring in a new law to sort them out. Buses, lorries and trains are among the things they're talking about, but some MPs say the needs of cyclists should be taken into account as well when the new law is drawn up. Their demands include the setting up of many more bike-only lanes in towns and cities to make cycling quicker and safer, and more help for cyclists from both the government and the local councils. Leading the campaign is an MP who's also a cyclist, Sir George Young. He says that more than 50 MPs now travel by bike, and that cyclists are a very important group of people in the country. I talked to him today.
Well, last year more bicycles were bought than cars. There are something like 15 million bicycles, and that's an awful lot of people. And I think politicians have got to start taking note of people who want to go to work or to school on a bike, or who want to bicycle in peace and safety.
So are you hoping then to get somebody in the government who will actually put forward the case of the cyclists?
Yes, indeed. First of all, I want to convert the two ministers, who I think are sympathetic, but they've put nothing in this bill about the cyclist. But perhaps more important, the civil servants who work in the Department of Transport. I want a cycling unit there. 4 or 5 people perhaps who are responsible for seeing that the interests of the cyclist aren't forgotten when we build new roads, new motorways, new underpasses and flyovers. So that there is someone that local authorities can go to and say, how do we make provision for the cyclist? And at the moment we haven't got that.
More trouble for that controversial punk rock group, the Sex Pistols. According to reports from America, where they've just been on tour, the group has split up. In the centre of the row is the lead singer, Johnny Rotten. Now, it's not quite clear whether he has walked out on the others or whether they have walked out on him. Either way, he's quoted as saying that the band doesn't exist at the moment. Well, the Sex Pistols are no strangers to trouble. They thrive on it. But some reports say that they sacked Johnny Rotten after a big row in San Francisco because he was dragging the group down. Well, right now, their London record company is trying to find out what's happened, and it looks as though next week's tour of Sweden will be cancelled. There's been great tension in the Middle East today after the dramatic suspension of the peace talks between Egypt and Israel. In a surprise move last night, President Sadat of Egypt ordered all his delegates to return home immediately from the Jerusalem talks. The Egyptians arrived back in Cairo today, and most of them seemed as surprised by their recall as the Israelis. Now it's claimed both countries are hoping the Americans will help them sort out their latest row. Egypt's president seems to think the Israelis aren't willing to give up enough of their demands in the search for peace, and that's what's led to this latest crisis. In a defiant speech today, Menachem Begin, Israel's prime minister, said it's now up to Egypt to get the peace talks going again. And he described some of the Egyptian demands as preposterous. For instance, the return to the Arabs of East Jerusalem. He said Jerusalem will remain the united capital of the Jewish people forever. But it's just 2 months ago today that the historic meeting took place in Jerusalem between President Sadat and Prime Minister Begin. In spite of the breakup, some people in both countries are still hoping that the talks can get going again. It's been announced that a new pound note will soon be in use. It'll be over a centimetre smaller in width, and the idea is that it will make it easier to tell the difference between a pound note and a £5 note. At the moment, the two notes are almost the same width. And to make it easier still, the RNIB, the Royal National Institute for the Blind, have made a kind of plastic ruler, and blind people can measure the new note against it and tell straight away that it's a pound. Well, today it's been snowing here, there and everywhere. The heaviest snows this year, in fact, from the West Country to East Yorkshire, from the South Coast to northern Scotland. In Glasgow, howling blizzards created giant traffic jams. and the city's airport, like most others throughout the country, was forced to close. Traffic came to a standstill for several hours on some roads, and some people just had to abandon their cars completely when driving surfaces became as slippery as ice rinks. Further south, in the heart of Wales, drifts of up to 6 feet deep had to be cleared by farm tractors and snowplows. Even then, it was too late for lots of children in the smaller Welsh villages to get to school today, and the weathermen don't see it getting any warmer for the next few days. But the winter has also blown in some unexpected good fortune. People in Kingsdown in Kent have found that after the terrible storms last week, the rough seas have been washing ashore piles of coal. They think it's probably come from a sunken minesweeper, which went down in the Second World War. So they've been picking it up by the barrow load and sitting out the snowstorms by the side of a warm coal fire. And that's all from Newsround this week. See you again on Monday. Until then, bye-bye.
This is BBC One. Now Thursday's Blue Peter.
Hello. 35 years ago, during the Second World War, it was an all too familiar sight to see the skies of Britain crisscrossed with the beams of searchlights seeking out enemy planes.
It was really during the Blitz that those searchlights were at their busiest. Once they'd located the enemy planes, then the huge anti-aircraft guns would swing into action and try and stop the bombs being dropped on our towns and cities. There's no doubt at all, if it hadn't been for those searchlights, many of which incidentally were manned by women, then the bomb damage would have been far greater.
After the war, of course, there was no use for the searchlights, and they nearly all were sold for scrap. But one in particular survived, and early this morning we manoeuvred all 20 hundredweight of it right here.
And manoeuvre really is the correct word, because it's a colossal, heavy piece of machinery, and took us a great deal of time to get it into position right here in the Blue Peter studio.
There we are. Right. Thank you ever so much for everything that you've done, Rory, in recovering missing television programmes. You've worked extremely hard at recovering what you've done, and wherever you are now, I hope you're enjoying it.